there was a broad narrative that underpinned the events of January 6th. This was the false narrative that an election had been stolen, and the idea that democracy was under existential threat, connected to a lot of different narratives sort of underneath that broad narrative. And what's important to remember is that these fans were flamed not only on extremist corners of the internet and really intentionally by organized online ecosystem of mis and disinformation. They were also promoted and echoed by mainstream media. So when we think about words, when we think about the narratives in our society, we have to ask, what are the seeds that are being planted and that are being tended to, right? And are those the seeds that we want to grow? Is this the path we want to keep walking down? And we saw that path being created quite a long time ago. And in a similar pattern to what we often see elsewhere, the first groups targeted with this type of rhetoric were groups that have been historically discriminated against or marginalized. When we trace back from January 6th, we have to remember that there was this steady normalizing in our public rhetoric of this type of very dangerous rhetoric. And so it's in this context that we arrive to January 6th, that the election itself is portrayed as an existential threat. We should all be concerned that we're not seeing a unified narrative now around January 6th. We know that violence begets further violence, that when we have violence and we don't address it, we're not very clear about responsibility. We're not very clear around what's acceptable behavior and what is not acceptable behavior and what the consequences are. We don't have a unified narrative of even how we tell the history that's not even a year old. This is really concerning and something that we all need to work on.